Meyer Lansky was a Jewish mobster who had a major influence over the Italian-American Mafia. Lansky, also known as the mob's accountant, became one of the most financially successful gangsters in all of American history. Today we're going to talk about how he built his empire and stretched it across the world. This video is brought to you by the Historic Autograph Company. Be sure to check out our website and our upcoming product, Mob 2. Mob 2 is set to release January 31st, 2024. Make sure you get your box as soon as possible. Meyer Lansky's story begins on July 4th, 1902. He was born in Grodno in the Russian Empire, modern-day Belarus, to a Polish family. In 1911, Lansky and his family came to the United States, where they settled in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. While Lansky was a child, he met his friend and future business partner, Bugsy Siegel. The two formed their own Jewish gang in Manhattan and began bootlegging operations during the Prohibition. Lansky was the brains behind their whole operation. The Bugs and Meyer mob became one of the most violent Prohibition gangs. For a short time, they operated under gangster Arnold Rothstein, who mentored them in all aspects of the bootlegging trade. As a teenager, Lansky also met another close friend and future associate, Charles Lucky Luciano. And Luciano would need Lansky's help to turn organized crime into a lucrative business for everyone involved. Lansky and Luciano would go on to help form the National Crime Syndicate. The National Crime Syndicate was a powerful and organized criminal network that emerged because of Lansky and Luciano. Gangs from across the country came together and got organized so that they can all have their share of the profits that would come from the different racketeering and bootlegging. And it wasn't just the Italian gangs, it was also the Jewish, Irish, Polish, and African-American gangsters that joined in. This confederation of criminal organizations formed in 1929 in a conference that took place in Atlantic City. And anybody who was anybody came to this meeting. We're talking Luciano, Capone, Siegel, Lansky, Anastasia, Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese. All these criminal icons in one place to form a massive criminal organization. When World War II broke out, the U.S. government actually went to the American Mafia for help. Known as Operation Underworld, the U.S. government used American mobsters for help on the home front. Mobsters were the eyes and ears on the street. They could help stop any Axis spies or saboteurs along the U.S. northeastern seaboard ports, to help put a stop to labor union strikes, and limit theft by anyone trying to sell vital war supplies and equipment on the black market. Lansky and his Jewish gang assisted in this operation. They would also find pro-Nazi rallies and put a stop to those immediately. He was also able to work a deal that would get his friend, Lucky Luciano, out of prison. Operation Underworld was a success, and it was due to mobsters like Lansky and Luciano, and their many connections. Lansky's big moneymaker was his gambling operations. By 1936, Lansky had operations running in Florida, New Orleans, and even Cuba. Lansky had casinos all over the place. When the Mafia took interest in Las Vegas, Lansky convinced them to have Bugsy Siegel be put in charge of the city. And they even became major investors in Siegel's Flamingo Hotel. Lansky was no fool. He did not want to end up like gangsters like Al Capone who get sent to prison for tax evasion. Lansky had money all over the world, specifically in Swiss bank accounts. He was able to use offshore banking to launder a ton of money and avoid being arrested. Siegel would begin to have trouble in Vegas. His Flamingo Hotel was not doing well, and his investors were looking for their money. And as you can imagine, they're not exactly patient when it comes to late payments. Lansky did everything he could to buy his friend some time, but there was only so much he could do. Siegel owed them money, and he wasn't paying. On June 20th, 1947, Siegel was shot and killed in Beverly Hills, and two new associates of Lansky took control of the Flamingo and started to run Vegas. Lansky, however, had his sights set on something even bigger than Las Vegas. Lansky actually became good friends with Cuba's dictator, Fulgencio Batista. This friendship began at a meeting that took place in a New York hotel, and it was during this meeting that Batista agreed to give the American Mafia control of the gambling operations in Cuba, in exchange for kickbacks, of course. Lansky and Batista turned Havana into the next Las Vegas, and it even got the nickname Latin Las Vegas. Of course, the mob ran their other rackets, prostitution and drug operations, but the big moneymaker was gambling. Batista encouraged gambling and provided easy opportunities for investors to put up casinos, hotels, and nightclubs. And this was perfect for the mob, who took this opportunity to funnel dirty money in. Lansky and Batista would earn millions of dollars from these gambling operations. Gangsters from around America got together in 1946 in Cuba. This meeting became known as the Havana Conference. Similar to the big meetings they've had in the past, all the bigwigs were there, and they were deciding how they were going to divide Cuba and all profit. Now, unfortunately for Lansky and the other American mobsters, these operations would come crashing down in 1959. The 1959 Cuban Revolution and the rise of Fidel Castro completely changed how the operations went in Cuba. Castro took control of Havana, and one by one, the casinos were closed, gambling became outlawed, and Lansky lost millions. And there was nothing Lansky and his mob associates could do. And the hits just kept coming for Lansky. In 1970, the government went after him for tax evasion, something he worked very hard to avoid. He tried going to Israel to avoid the arrest, but was sent back to the U.S. and was immediately arrested in the Miami International Airport. The charges would be dropped, and Lansky did manage to stay out of prison, but now his health was declining. Lansky retired in Miami and spent his last years quietly. And on January 15th, 1983, he died of lung cancer. It was believed that Lansky had $300 million hidden in his many bank accounts, but no money was ever found. As far as anyone was concerned, Lansky, who was one of the most financially successful gangsters ever, was broke at the time of his death. Meyer Lansky was very good at what he did, and that was make money, and for the most part, stay out of prison. He got involved in some pretty bad rackets, and eventually he did learn that crime doesn't pay.